Okay. Usually there's something up here that's...
Okay, it's going.
For sure.
Yes. We're on? You're on.
All
We're
right.
on. We're live.
All right.
Doing it
We're
live.
doing it live. Welcome, everybody. Planet Green Trees, episode, what did we say it was? 535? And
535.
535.
we're calling it the Canna Jam after Slam.
Canna Jam after.
Canna Jam after Slam. All right, so you're listening.
Jamie!
Dan, bad connection. I'm having a tough time. I don't hear Amanda anymore. She just dropped off. It's all good.
Muted.
Okay, I see. Okay, that's fine. Good. So we're starting the show. Planet Green Trees. I'm Michael Komorn, your host of Komorn Law PLC. We're about an hour and a half of what is going to be a lot of entertainment about cannabis and cannabis policy and reform and medical cannabis. Other
Canna
topics that
Jam,
come to
the
mind,
day in review.
specifically the Canna Jam Day in Review. We're calling Canna Jam Post Slam. And we got a lot of good stuff to talk about, other topics on the horizon. But we have some great guests here in the studio and the Zoom. Let me introduce them and not even tease the topics. The tease topic is going to be Canna Jam, and we'll let it go from there. But here with me, we've got Dandy Dan, who is
Dan.
sitting in.
Dirty Dandy Dan.
Graduated from Dirty Dan.
And
And he's sitting in for the Bunker Boys. And our late start had nothing to do with any of that. It had nothing to do with the change of authority and whatnot. But next to Dandy Dan, who's left the arena now, is the one and only Jim Powers of Michigan Parents for Compassion. Please welcome Jim Powers.
Thank you, Michael. Good evening, everybody. It's good to be here. Still kind of recovering from Canna Jam,
Yeah, I'm still.
so I'm not sure if I can file for workers' comp, but we're gonna see. But good to be here.
Nice, Jim.
Jimmy the Pepper.
And, of course, Steve Miller, who I think, was it afterwards you went and got a Canna Jam tattoo somewhere? Just kidding. There was,
Right in downtown Ipsy.
I know, it's what I can't tell, it goes without saying, but Steve built a fence like on Friday. There was like in the rain and
Setting the tone for the.
a 5-hour
festival.
fence building to make sure there was no visual illegal entries. But I can't think enough, Steve. And of course, everyone knows Steve Miller, retired police officer, the rover here at Komorn Law, and of course the plethora of library for the music of
Lot
Steve Miller.
useless knowledge.
Steve Miller.
Thank you, Michael. Looking forward to recapping the day.
All right, because that's what it is. It's going to be the Canna Jam recap slam. Is that what you call it, or post
The Reslam.
reslam? And of course, Amanda Joslin is here in the Zoom. Welcome, Amanda, who is safely returned from where she came. I don't know what that means, but she's safely returned. And thanks for being here.
Thank you so much, Michael. And I'm still I have a visual of Esteban getting a Canna Jam tattoo in down.
Right across the middle of my back. Large letters.
Big, large letters.
Did she freeze up? Is that what's going on?
Support
so.
pool business.
She did. Her
Okay.
internet connect. They don't have good internet in Florida,
Uh-oh.
so
Is that what's going on?
yeah.
All right.
Maybe they need
She's
to
frozen up
regulate
again.
that market more.
Yeah,
The iguanas chew on the cables.
that's
Is that what happens? And by the way, here we have Jamie Lowell, who enough cannot be said about him. He's responsible for everything. And he appears in, I think, what do we figure out? 3 or 4 podcasts per day. 3 or 4 per day. So by the time you get him like on a Thursday, he has perfected the talking points. He's delivering it short, concise, to the point. It's an amazing evolution. You could go back earlier in the week and start with like Monday mics, or then you got the stroke and rope, and you got the
Stroke and rope.
cabbage, and then of course by Planet. Fantastic, and I'm so happy that we get the best of the best in Jamie Lowell here with us. Thanks for joining.
Totally polished by the time I make it on the Planet Green Trees.
It's important.
So I don't think we have anyone calling in per se. There was a number of people that promised and committed to come on the show that I slurked out of the Canna Jam crowd. That we look forward to having those persons on who.
I had a couple too, but I told them not to come this week.
Right, that's what I thought. But it's a good week to talk about Canna Jam and the takeaway and whatnot. So I think we should do that. What do you think? Is that okay? We do that? I mean, Jamie, I know that earlier in the week you were on a couple of shows talking about it, and I heard you talking about it on Ryan's show, which was very nice, and there was he said a lot of nice things about it, and I'm not. And listen, we had a meeting today, and to try to did some debriefing for anyone that cares or listens, and give ourselves some self-criticism, constructive criticism, and there's a lot of things that we know lessons learned and whatnot. But most of the response has been good. Jamie, go ahead. I don't want to ask you how you think the event was. Go ahead.
I talked about it on Jazz Cabbage Cafe. I talked about it on Ryan Basor's show, Smoke and Row. And each time I reported that it was a success, as I will report here on Planet Green Trees, the inaugural Canna Jam was a success. And while there are areas where there could be improvements, all things considered, it came together and worked out. Was very happy about it and had a great time too.
It was a great time.
So here's one of my things First of all, it was a great time. I enjoyed myself a lot. I was not. I was just. I mean, putting it together was a lot of effort. We can talk about some of that a little bit, but just the amount of things that had to get done, and the fact that they got done. As I said, Steve, one day built a fence, like a quarter-mile fence in 4 or 5 hours. I mean, there's that kind of stuff that was going
enormous.
on. It was just like.
Fence.
And Dan, I mean, that's just one of a million things. It was like, so. There's a lot of little pieces that we've learned of, and we had it was limited in our start, and we've learned a lot of lessons from it. But and I invite feedback, constructive criticism. I've been looking for that. We're not here to talk about that, but for people that are listening, I say I did this with the vendors and the other, vendors, cannabis, not cannabis. We sent out like some questionnaires, like what did you think? How do you think the event could be better? Whatnot. But for people that are listening, if they were there, what'd you like about it? What didn't you like about it? Feel free to comment in the chat.
Yeah. Or watching.
And we can either ignore it if it seems mean and hostile.
If you didn't like it, keep it to yourself. Just let us know what you liked about it.
That's right.
We can figure out the rest of it.
That's right.
Well, I'd like to believe if everyone is constructive and polite about it, we can, I like the idea of having the community input and how it could be better. It could be billed as the People's Festival, the People's Canna Jam. That we care and want to make it happen. Because there's a lot of factors
the
of
people that had tickets.
Well,
until 8:30.
There'll be more people with more tickets next time.
That's
but
right.
The point is that it can be whatever we want to develop it into. You know what I mean? And it can be in for a specific purpose and cause and evolve into something. Yeah. So I don't know. I think those things are for Jamie. What were some of the give me the wrap up some of the feedback you've been getting. Only positive though.
Well, I mean, there is only positive feedback, really, particularly for those who understand, the context of this type of an event. A regular event is stressful to put on. An event with extra layers of regulations coming from the state and the city and different things, and them trying to figure out as they're going along, because this is a new thing.
We liked the regulation.
It makes it really difficult, and things went up to the almost the day of the event, and it's testimony to the overcoming the challenges by the great team that you put in place, and so while people are talking about a few things that could have been better or should have been added or could have been more convenient and that type of stuff, things that we know, that we saw, we experienced, that didn't really seem to get in the way from the success overall of the event. I've only gotten really positive feedback. People had a blast. I mean, people gone out of their way to say how excited they were for it. People asking about involvement already for next year. People from the city itself excited about it. So the whole thing was just something to really kind of celebrate, I think. And I didn't really hear anything that was a major complaint or concern from anybody.
No.
I was, I don't know. It's kind of a unique situation. First of all, you don't know if anyone's going to come, and you don't know of the people you think that might come, or the communities that you're, interacting with or orbiting around and with, if they're going to come, or where the people are going to come from, and what parts of it are going to draw people. Like there's so many, you may throw a lot of things into the bill that each one of them may want to bring someone, but. I don't know. I mean, there's different ways of the categories to see like what our feedback was. Like, for example, do you think a lot of the attendees were purchasing cannabis or brought their own, right? Because this was a purchase or...
I can tell you anecdotally, it was probably about 50-50. Just knowing what people were bringing in through the South Gate, certainly it was probably split halfway. But all the dispensaries at the event seemed like they had lines most of the time when I was walking by. It looked pretty busy to me.
Well, I know. I mean, I know some of this information because I've gotten direct feedback from the vendors, and all of them were happy with the results. Let's just say, let's just put it that way. One even selling out where they packed up, before the end of the night, and one of the other, so it was that kind of thing, and so that's a good response, and I was interested in that because I think my take was that there was more purchasing than I expected. I thought there'd be more bring your own kind of stuff. But Jamie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it was kind of up in the air for me too. And when it got going though, and there was consistent, people coming through into the event, into those vendor spaces. And when I would just kind of ask around a little bit, how's it going? Everybody was pretty happy with the flow of people and the consistency. And, I asked Botanical Company a little bit more often because I was hanging around there and am a part of that organization. And they were happy. I mean, I was projecting less attendance than what actually took place. So I think that's always a positive. It was great. I was, about ready to say that, when it became down to the wire where this is going to go down and promotion has to start, this is within a short time of the event itself. And it was a massive effort to get word out and to make a lot of contacts and get involvement and attention. And it was well responded to for a very short period of time of really working it. I mean, very pleased with it. Very happy for everybody who took advantage of coming out and being a part of it. And we got lucky in some respects because it was October 9th and the weather was perfect.
It really was. It wasn't perfect Friday though, Steve.
No.
Wasn't perfect leading up to it at all.
But you know what? I don't mind having worked out in that rain on Friday because we had such a nice day on Saturday.
That's right.
So it was worth it.
It was a beautiful day. It's amazing the way the weather came out.
Yeah, you should be proud, Michael.
For that, for the weather, I'm not responsible for that. It's funny.
No, for the event and the fact that it was accompanied with unseasonably perfect weather doesn't hurt.
It was,
But,
it was great. And all right, let's talk about the music.
great.
Let's talk about so anyways, do we think the crowd? So we see. I you never know, and I don't know. I think one of the reasons that people may have is because I know we were very we were anti MCA.
MCMA.
MCA.
And anti just big money interests with ill intent.
That's true, and they weren't there. And they've been vetted, and all the people that were there were we're not.
We did.
From that support group, and
Steve ran extensive background investigations on all of them.
And the
Along with Jamie.
That's right.
But I don't know. I like that. It's one of the draws. I think that there's going to be cannabis there. You know what I mean? And they've brought it for you to ingest.
In this case, the admission was very reasonable. especially for the entertainment that was being provided. But then the vendors inside had great deals on some good cannabis, so it was like worth coming in to have access to a variety of really good deals on products that were brought in there.
There were some really great deals. I got quite a few things, and some of I got a couple of eights and then a few pre rolls and things like that, and kind of mixed it up and got a little bit from everywhere. And I was pleased with pricing, and also the bud tenders were super nice, and they had their setup. They knew what they were doing, so I liked that too. It wasn't mass chaos. It was organized, and
It was organized chaos.
organized chaos.
And Amanda, you were there with your group and offering educational and kind of counseling services as a entrance point of education and for cannabis users. Is that right? Did we get a lot of attention there? Do you
Yes.
think those were people that were actually?
We had a lot of traction at our booth. I'm one of the members of the Midwest Canna concierge group, and our goal is to kind of bridge the gap between the physician and the patient. So, as we know, a demographic that is kind of exploding in the cannabis world are seniors. And so those may be folks that would take advantage of this, and perhaps want to know how their medications could interact with, like their pharmaceutical medications could interact with their cannabis usage. Maybe they want to taper off of a medication. That's often what we find is a lot of patients go to medical marijuana to taper off of opiates, as an example. So, we provide assistance, and Kelsey is a pharmacist, a licensed pharmacist in Michigan, Ohio, and this week will be Florida. So we're able to provide services to all states.
And they
in
have
addition to that,
they have a real practical knowledge too. I just want to say they've been on here a couple of times, and when they get into these topics, they demonstrate a real understanding of up to date information on this stuff.
yeah, absolutely. And Kelsey is she is part of the International Cannabis Nurses Society. So she's in her nursing capacity is also trained with whatever they give you, and like cannabis knowledge. So that's really great. And then in addition to that, she also develops modules to provide to physicians that may be on the fence about it or just want to know more information. So she can hook up with them, and we also go places and do presentations. So that's our jam, and we got a lot of great feedback from the folks that attended, and a lot of real genuine interest. So we were very pleased.
So I want to make a comment. I saw that somebody was asking about, and it's really a call for, it may be the right kind of call for the pharmacist from your group, but one of our persons commented they want to know, is there any information and if any medical or other cannabis can help a person who has been off methadone for a week and can't sleep? Now, it reminded me of, I know there's a Vice episode, second season or something like that, where they were tracking the use of cannabis to treat opioid addiction, and it was like off in the hills somewhere, it was out east, I think. So they followed this kid who was, snorting stuff the night before, gets himself out, checked up, goes in, and the program was that all the people that were there were in recovery and had made it with cannabis, and it was literally a diet of cannabis all day long. Like they get up, they just dump oil into them, hit the bong, hit the pipe. Here's some more stuff. Just eat them, just to kind of, and because you're getting through the bad day. But that was, and then of course they went and
Nice.
interviewed the physicians at the treatment center, and they said, well, that doesn't sound very safe, and blah 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 blah. And then they said,
unsafe about it?
but then they said, what's your success? What's your success rate? They said we don't, like zero.
It's
and
3%.
and that it's too
It is.
expensive for anyone to get in there anyways.
Well, it's 3%, and you know what else is 3%? It's the rate that
Luck.
people just that people
Yeah.
just like spontaneously get out of it. So there you go.
Right. I got it. So the point is, right?
Their system's not working.
No,
Jim,
it works.
is
It works as good as not doing anything.
But
at all.
that's the question that is being asked. And
And that is exactly the type of patient that our group would be able to service. We can get her. I know it's kind of like a crisis mode right now, but in typical terms, we would get them scheduled with Kelsey. She would sit down, figure out what they're on, what they're trying to do, and give them advice from a medical professional.
the short answer is probably yes. Wouldn't you say so, Dr. Lowell? There's a Dr. Lowell.
Could cannabis be beneficial for this situation? Absolutely.
And
It's
not-
like everybody here understands that right on the surface. Then it's a matter of the people that, such as the people that Amanda alludes to help this person walk down the path of which things to try and when and how, and to get it going, depending on what level of information they need.
I would recommend some Rick Simpson.
Well,
oil.
that's what I was going to say. When,
Yeah.
when you're looking to acquire sleep as a factor, right?
Oh.
And
Rick Simpson oil.
well, there you go. I mean, there's that, and there's all kinds of other places that the oil is in foods that you can eat, and you're out, and you'll have arguably you might have a good night's sleep.
There's a huge discussion surrounding this, and of course the Simpson oil is one of the mainstays, one of the go-tos for sure in this.
Well, I'm
That's
talking
what
about
I
two
mean.
separate things. I'm talking not about its impact on the treatment and impact on methadone and whatever was the drug of choice before methadone. I'm talking about just the concept of sleeping. You know what I mean? And it may be before someone asleep that can't sleep because of with some withdrawal symptoms or some other kind of change in body chemistry. But I don't know. I mean, Jamie, if someone came and said, "Listen, I know of a patient that needs to sleep, you can't sleep, they're in their pain or whatever." What's your go-to for recommendation?
Well, for sure, when the cannabis is a little bit more mature and the THC is degraded a little bit and the CBN numbers are higher, that one gets a lot of different things could work for this person. That's why I'm saying that the discussion is big. It's the person's individual system is a big part of this discussion. But that typically is something that there's other things too. There's the certain elements, the terpenes like myrcene and other things that lend itself to relaxation and being sleepy. There's a lot of components to that discussion would be had with the individual, but for sure, and something with the high CBN in it, and if you can even get some of that isolated and applied to some products to be purposefully based around that, and that usually gets right to the heart of it. But that's just one thing. The discussion would be depending on how sensitive the person is and how much they've tried and where they are with it and everything. And hopefully they would, if they really need it, that kind of attention. I mean, the people that Amanda, that type of situation is really good information for somebody like that.
And just to enhance the largeness of the discussion, I see some other, like Anna Jacobs, who's superstarred at the event as well, was everywhere and extremely helpful. Thank you, Anna. Suggests a CBN tincture. So we're not even talking THC at this point as a suggestion. A lot of RSO comments. And
I mean, there's lavender sometimes infused additionally into these things. They said there's some of the terpenes lend themselves to that heavily. I mean, and then the people have individual responses to these things, and what makes one person tired is not the same thing for another person.
well, here you go. So
Circumstantially.
right, but understand, and of course, everyone's endocannabinoid system is different. It's funny. I went to a high school friend of mine's open house at his office, physician, and I haven't seen him in a long time. And he was, one of the things he said, like even in he hates the medical practice, is that it's still stigmatized, for a certain degree, and And I tried to explain to him that, he said, well, how can you tell which is too much or whatever? I said, that's not even a fair thing because everyone's endocannabinoid system is different, right?
Everybody figures themselves out.
So, right. So it's not as easy to, but he's asking for a high dosage of THC. He wanted me to say something like that. But one of the ways that it happens, and I see our friend Michael Toohey, patients can ingest cannabis while on probation. Michael Toohey. And it's going to a lot of times be from the experiences with patients and what the feedback is, because we don't have any other kind of methodology to go by. And there's no consistencies that, absolute consistencies. But Michael Toohey suggests high doses, and we're talking about treating sleep problems, high doses, edibles, and FECO. What is that? FECO? At
FECO, full extract cannabis oil.
Okay, at 1-to-1 ratio during the day and THC at night to sleep. Okay. So we got a lot of different opinions out here. And
you know what my opinion
for
is?
sleeping. Jim, what's your opinion?
We got to take a break.
Very good. That's fair.
So.
That's fair. All right, we're talking about Canna, Jim. There's other. I mean, we can put it to rest. Feedback is warranted, and appreciate everyone's effort and stuff. The next one's going to be 19 times bigger, and
19.
Yeah.
That's all I gotta say.
Specific. That is specific.
And we're
You better believe
It's gonna be a lot
19,
of
maybe
food,
even
Jim.
21.
Like VIP tent.
We're starting now.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Hello, this is John D. Lamb from Planet Green Trees TV. Congratulations, Hash Bash, on your 50th annual. This goes out to all your dads out there who ever got in trouble for smoking pot. Your smile is legal now, don't frown. Show some teeth, don't look so down. Hold your head up high, have a ball. You weren't so bad after all. Your smile is illegal now, don't cry. Let me be that twinkle in your eye. You paid the price, took a fall, but you weren't so bad after all. Busted in your high school parking lot, busted in your college dorm. Then you trusted a narc and you got popped on the day your son was born. Misdemeanors, felonies and fines, paranoia, probation times. They watching you pee in the lavatory, a gallon of clean tea. Naturally, you had a record the year you had me. Your smile is legal now, so get high. Might do you some try. Your smile is illegal, wake and bake. Your smile is illegal, have some cake. Happy birthday, Dad, I just had to call. You weren't so bad after all.
Double shift in the heart of the city. Sun's going down, I'm about to get ready to close my eyes, get some rest and dream of a life that's better than this. Pull the shades close and turn off the light, climb into bed and the rest of my life fades away oh so fast. The next thing you know I'm gone in a flash. A big blue world that was full of fire, I was soaring through the air in my radio flyer. That's when I saw you standing in the sunlight. Yeah, the fire in your eyes was so surreal. Somehow I thought it could all be real. Wishing that this moment in my life would last forever. Every night I dream so we could be together. My alarm went off and the sun came up, and I was back to work and just my luck. Breaking my back just to stay afloat. I can't stay awake, I need an antidote to keep my fears and my blues away. Well, it's getting heavy at the end of the day. I bust out the door, down the road. Yeah, to finish what I started, no telling where it might go. Out of a big blue world that was full of fire, I was soaring through the air in my radio flyer. That's when I saw you standing in the sunlight. Yeah, the fire in your eyes was so surreal. Somehow I thought I could all be real. Wishing that this moment in my life would last forever. And every night I dream so we could be together. And every night I dream so we could be together. Too long, though my feelings now for you are strong. You take my hand, or we leave the ground, we're flying. A big blue world that was full of fire, I was soaring through the air in my radio flyer. That's when I saw you standing in the sunlight. Yeah, the fire in your eyes was so surreal. Somehow I thought it could all be real. Wishing that this moment in my life would last forever. Every night I dream so we could be together. Oh, and every night I dream so we could be together. Yeah, and every night I dream so we could be together. Yes, I do. Oh, I dream of you. Nuns together. I dream.
Here's Michael Komorn with more Planet Green Trees.
That a little tiny bit of that shit.
We're back.
We're back.
I get
We're
pretty.
back.
I get pretty hit.
What?
You get pretty hit.
Okay.
Get pretty hit on some good oil.
I do too.
It
All
doesn't
I
take
need
much.
Just needs a little grain of rice size, and you're off you go. Good medicine.
All right, very good. So
Yeah.
we're back, Jamie. I know we were talking. We're going to do a couple more minutes with Canna, Jim. There was a lot of nonprofit groups.
Yeah.
I know that you were in charge of making sure they were booked in at a slot.
Yeah.
What was the feedback?
Most of them, I think it was great. Had again another good round of feedback there. You know, I mean, Amanda and her people provided a lot of good education. There was education in other areas. There was the decriminalized nature people there. They're pushing the Senate Bill 631, which would decriminalize entheogenic plants and fungi, I think. I'm not sure to the extent, but very good bill. Senator Irwin, of course, introduced it, but it has bipartisan support, and see what they can do with it. They had a lot. They asked for help, support to let the lawmakers know to get behind this, and they had like over 10 pages of people who signed, onto that thing. So that's a good sign. But there was the Glenn that I'm involved with, Great Lakes Expungement Network, with Josie and Sons and Daughters, More Than Hope, Michigan Normal with Mr. Hash Bash, Adam Brook himself out there, ASA. There was a veterans group, man, Warriors, something. I wish I could remember the name. That should give it some justice, but
What's the name of that?
anyway,
Wounded Warriors.
Wounded Warriors, maybe.
no, that's not what this one was. But anyway, point being that it was a nice little group of education and political advocacy and help for people and that type of stuff. It also has room for improvement, that type of an area, but it was great.
It's good. Yeah.
Well, we haven't. I just in some way we're going to be giving our some donations to the various promised institutions of the John Sinclair Foundation and the Redemption. So we're going to make there'll be an announcement about that coming up. But we're happy that we're
awesome.
able to do that from the.
I was just hanging out with John Sinclair moments ago.
Oh, that's nice. Where is he? Why isn't he on the show?
Why didn't you invite him? What's up?
Well, I don't know. He wouldn't have an easy time getting on the show. He's out and about checking out some space down the street from me right now. And I met him on my way back home from Lansing today there.
So you're gonna be going down a couple of doors and asking for an egg or a cup of sugar from John Sinclair?
That would be cool if it works out like that. Yeah. More like showing up and just handing him more cannabis would be the more precise, transaction. But no, I hope whatever works out for him.
It would be nice if they allowed caregivers into the Canna gym. Wouldn't it? If it could, and there's probably a way you could do it. They'd have to test it and provide it, and it'd be in a metric for the day or something like that. Wouldn't that be cool if you could actually?
I mean, it would be cool.
I got a metric. Let's say like with my MELS, I got a metric. I could, I could, as long as it was tested and passed, they could put it into the metric, and that could be sold. And anyone could bring it and put it in there.
It's like the old farmers market
Right.
model.
That would be a good thing. We should talk. I don't, I'm just saying there's a uniqueness to it, the way that the whole thing functions.
Mm-hmm.
Micro businesses can't sell to anyone other than out the door, but they're allowed to provide for and at these kind of events. Can't otherwise sell into the metric. I don't know, some oddity things here, and I don't know. I don't know that that'll ever happen or that they're going to be looking into. But Jamie, that's one of the things we wanted to talk to if we want to move on from Canna Jam. I think our total ticket engagement is a proper word. It may not be ticket sales or full price tickets.
We had
because
quite a few people come in and pay at the gate.
That's true. So So the reflections of was that right? I think the reflections from the Eventbrite had like 2,100 ticket engagements or something like that, 1,900 ticket engagements.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know, and I don't know that includes. You know, some people may have, you know, purchased a ticket, given it to somebody. I don't know, but I don't know. There may have been a close to a couple thousand people there, Jamie, over the day. What do you think?
I think about 2,000 is reasonable. Some other people who, I mean, took some estimates at it, said about the same.
Right.
So that's not, you know,
It's-
science, but seems pretty fair.
It's remarkable, and I think okay. So let's talk about this. So the initial, you know, the initial goals, the ultimate goals at the end of the day was we wanted to, you know, fill all of our obligations, such as the donations that we spoke about. We, you know, success looked like being able to manage the event. It's, you know, big and there's a lot of going on, and have it be incident-less, you know, that we could walk out of that. There's no issues, and I think we accomplished that. You know, there's some oddities just because it's in the middle of a city that I think is just by nature's, you know.
There were no instances of issues. The police, we were just talking about this earlier, and you know, we talked to the police quite a bit throughout the day, and repeatedly they said what an easy day this is.
Yeah.
I don't believe we had a single instance where we had to engage the police for anything the entire day.
No. You know, it was funny because it was terrible. We had to stop sometimes. I saw like just because people would normally ride through the park, and we were of course obligated to check everyone. And there was a mother on a bike with her kid in it. She wants to ride through the park. I don't care. She's over the age of 20, but like the kid's not. It was just ridiculous. I mean,
And there were some people that were upset, but I mean, for the most part, I think the city was glad we were there. And we had when we were tearing down Sunday morning, I had a couple people come up to me that were walking through the park, and they congratulated us and wished us a great next year. So I think that's really, really positive.
I hope so. I mean, I hope the city's, you know, happy. We got a little bit of feedback from them, but you know, we want to hear their. We've gotten feedback. They're happy with it, and they told us that they're interested in this for next year. But we're gonna have a couple of conversations. We're supposed to, you know, continue to engage with the city at a much more in-depth level, and especially the communities in the surrounding community within that area, Depot Town, and the other business leaders and whatnot, and make sure it becomes a really Ypsilanti thing. All right, let's talk about the entertainment for a second, because that goes without saying was one of the reasons people showed up. And
Dan was saying we could cut to a video of echoes of Pink Floyd, so people could. Well, now he's singing "Hang On." I don't know. I mean, Dan's a little all over the place, so I guess we can just keep talking about it.
all right, but.
All right, he's got it.
Okay, so one of the bands is Echoes of Pink Floyd. We had Tom Beller from the Real Leaf Solutions, Mom Pa Cultivation, and the Pink from Pink Floyd. And as it has been said, they took it to the next level. Go ahead, Dan. Let's see what we're talking about.
You raise the blade, you make the change, you rearrange me till I'm sane. You knock the door and throw away the key, but There's someone in my head, but it's not me.
We're back. We're back on the
trailer and
in the set here. We're pretty good. That's you know, I mean,
it was great. It was so much fun.
We captured it good too. That was a pretty good recording. I got to say, Tommy, and Dan, and
I think Justin was running the camera.
in drone
maybe
Justin.
It was Dirty Dan. Dirty Dan was busy yelling at us. Dirty Dan was being a bit of a slave driver on Saturday.
He was extremely serious. He was all about business.
No.
One of the components that equaled a successful day.
That's right. Cracking the whip. Cracking the whip.
If I would like to offer an explanation. Of course, Dan is not in a position where he's going to try to defend himself, so I'm just going to go to town here. No, I honestly believe this. Dan was operating at a at like a superhuman processing. Like he had taken on so much responsibility, and it was either it was going to all fall apart or he was going to do it all in order to do that. He had to elevate. Same thing for Steve, and and like just had those things not happened, there would not have been the setup that it was and the attendance and the whole program. I mean, it goes without saying. All right. Dan can't defend himself. He was, and Steve too. Like there was 2 days where you saw these guys like, like what mountain has to be moved from where to where? Okay, well, I'll go do that and then I'll come back.
Yeah,
this is what's going on. All right,
we're still tired.
Right. All right. So listen, I know that some of the things that have been going on. Have we really talked about the 5301 at all? I don't know. We did a little bit last week, right? And I think with the Tom Beller and the Darren McCarty pre-cannabis jam, we talked about a little bit.
We did.
They both think that it sucks too. They have both very clearly stated that.
So, what is it? What do you think the state is, Jamie? Why don't you let's let everybody comment about that where we are right now, because I did a lot of time talking about it last time, but I think let's get a little background. When I say 5301, what are we talking about? What law or amendments that are going to affect the MMA? Jamie, like, what's the status of it? Where do you think it's going? And then we'll all comment. You go first.
Just a question of what I think is going, or do you want me to give a little background on it?
Give a little background, please. Get some background for the listeners.
So, all right, so there's a series of bills, 5300, 5302, but mainly 5301 is amendments to the Michigan Medical Marijuana Act. The other ones are accompanying things to help carry out the entire intent. It includes taking away a lot of existing rights for the caregivers, including reducing the amount of patients that a caregiver can be connected to from 5 to 1. Caregivers not being able to make some of the extractions that are, the basis for many of the products that are being consistently supplied to patients in need. There's extra burdens in terms of testing and possibly the metric having to be a part of the metric system, lots of just unnecessary additional restrictions, and along with taking back rights, that's just for no reason at all. And then there is a component in there where a new license would be created to create an avenue for caregivers to be able to bring product to the commercial market. But it is essentially dysfunctional. It's not likely that it would be put into motion for many different reasons, to be able to get all the approvals necessary on one hand, and then even then at that point, it's kind of a dysfunctional system and way to bring cannabis back to the market. So that's what is being opposed by, as far as I can tell, everybody else except for the Michigan Cannabis Manufacturers Association, some of the big investors, and the lawmakers that they've been able to influence. And they've confused some lawmakers don't know the difference between medical and adult use and how that works. Some are confused about why it must be tested, even if it's a caregiver scenario. Some don't know why they need these 72 plants. And we were back to like talking about stuff that we did years ago. I mean, there's a whole new slew of people in there that haven't heard all this stuff. It's been like 12 years now with term limits and things like that. We're running into a lot of people that just haven't had these discussions and haven't thought about it, haven't looked into it that deeply. And they can be swayed by saying stuff like that. And they are. I mean, there's some heavy duty lobbying going on. And there are people pushing these things. And is no real health concern. There is no real reason to peel back any rights. There's no issues with the 12 or 13 years of the caregiver system that's been in place. And the largest industry association, the Michigan Cannabis Industry Association, has come out very specifically in opposition of these bills. So the other licensed commercial participants are in opposition. The caregivers and patients are in opposition. The relevant advocacy organizations are in opposition. And no average citizen, I'm sure, likes the idea of unnecessarily taking away rights and allowing a small group of huge investors to control everything. So, but nonetheless, they are creating a big challenge. They're spending a lot of money. They have a lot of big professionals, people who understand the processes around Lansing, are very connected. And, it's a real thing. If this leaves committee and to bring people further up to date, there has been a first hearing There were presentations made, some testimony. It was completely lopsided on the side of those who are in support of these things. Steve Linder and Shelley Edgerton and some others gave presentations. It was bizarre. It was referred to as a dog and pony show by a couple of people. There was opportunity for those in opposition to give some testimony, but it was very lopsided. Our side did a good job. Amy Carter, Rick Thompson, Susan Fisher, Representative Johnson, Richard, but it was really limited. But if it makes it out of committee, they need the super majority vote. And the next time they could possibly vote on this on a second reading would be this upcoming Tuesday. That hasn't been put on the agenda. We don't know for sure. It's just the next time they could do it. Maybe they want to spin it around and let it fail. That'd be perfect. But if it makes it to the floor, we need 28 no votes. So we're really trying to encourage everybody to contact their own House representative and request that they oppose 5300, 5302. If we get 28 no votes, we can stop it that way, even if it makes it out of committee. Sorry, go ahead, Michael.
No, we don't know where it's going. Is there a possibility they're going to let people testify and reopen? No. It's over. It's been closed. Yeah. So,
that's always how this has gone.
Yeah.
I mean, it's always been lopsided. It's always been a shit show, and it is a really high bar. But the problem with these bills and why people need to be concerned and people need to do like Jamie's asked and contact their House reps is there is a narrative behind this thing that the MCMA is trying to do. And but for the legislators being educated, it's a really relatable narrative for most people. And they've already started with the media onslaught. There was just a story on Channel 2 about a caregiver group some group. I guess I don't know that they're caregivers, but it was a group that was doing marijuana delivery. And they're getting splattered all over the news, and these are the people they're going to start bringing up as poster children as to why this stuff should be occurring. And in that case, they tested the product that they were given and found that, in some cases there was actually no THC, I believe, in some of like the edibles and whatnot.
Well, you're already not allowed to do that. You can't just take it upon yourself to. You don't need to peel back any other rights in order to address that if somebody was really concerned about it, I guess.
Well, no, I totally agree, but to your point, Jamie, if that's the only narrative a lawmaker's hearing, what do you think they're going to do? Which is why it's
right.
so
No, I know.
important that people
they're confused by a lot of this stuff, and that's the kind of thing exactly that gets thrown at them. The one about where somebody doesn't live in the house and they, grow in there, and that one gets brought up a lot. Again, has nothing to do with, right? Peeling back existing caregiver system. Scenario.
No, and I mean, though, that's another great example where if the city wanted to go and do something about it, they absolutely could. The laws are already in place.
For what?
If someone is, for instance, growing in a house and they don't live there,
I don't know.
But who cares? Like it's all about.
Cares?
It's all about being a good neighbor. If you're a good neighbor, no one's gonna give a shit.
I know, but I'm saying to you, I think that I'm not ready to accept the principle that a city can ban caregiving. The state law trumps local law.
I'm not saying that they can ban it. What I'm saying is,
or even try to regulate something that they don't have the authority to regulate. It has to be a home business occupation in order for it to be regulated in that regard. If it's your residence and you're growing there, I don't know if they can do that. And even if it's a residence instead of in a residential area instead of a commercial area, I don't know how and under what circumstances there exists a government authorization to inspect your house for crimes.
There isn't one, of course. I mean,
like the whole idea with these inspections are, we want to come in and see if there's a crime taking place. So we can get a search warrant to come back later. That is not, and they don't have the right to do that.
Yeah, but what they'll do, and they've done
All
in
right.
the past, is they'll send the building inspector in. And the building inspector
Still needs a warrant.
will walk around the house.
It's a warrant. It's got to have a probable cause that there's some building inspection problem.
And they always find one. I mean, look what happened to our friend Eric Gunnels, and he wasn't doing anything wrong. And they completely fucked with him for
there's a
4
code
years.
they'll find you violate.
Yep. It's insane. Absolutely insane.
Free country, though.
Yeah, supposedly.
That's what they've been
Until
telling.
you violate the building
That's
code.
what they've been telling us all these years, but there's so many laws layered and intertwined, and somebody made reference to that today
what
on
did
the
the-
listserv
What did
about
the
how there's so many
There is.
layers and twists and this and that. So if you're doing one thing, it's probably violating something else. And
right? Well, I mean,
Are you talking about these amendments?
just
So-
just in general.
just in general.
Oh, in general, okay.
And-
So in the actual, proposal, it's layers and layers of just stupid shit. Anybody who's looked it over, it just keeps going, and it almost seems as if, and just based on what we've seen in the past, that they may have seriously thought they could get into a negotiation with this and then peel back a lot of those kind of stupid things.
It's exactly
But
what
still,
they think.
yeah, but still effectuate, the decimation of the small business economy that's been built up around the caregiver system and the caregiver system itself, and leave the people vulnerable so that they can attempt to advance themselves, which I don't really think would, even if they are successful.
So that's our House rep we want to contact on that, right, Jamie?
Yeah, I mean, not to say it hurts to contact a senator early, but our best chance is, because in case it gets out of the House, but our best chance is to stop it in the House. It would be great if it died. I mean, many people, many organizations, lobbyists. I mean, there's lots of opposition to these bills, and the committee itself is hearing from it quite heavily right now, as you might imagine. And it would be awesome to stop it in committee and just let it die there. Good try to the lobbyists, but this is stupid, so it's not going to go any further. That would be ideal. But if, they line it up right, it's a small group of people to convince to get a simple majority,
Yeah.
then that goes to the House floor. And so just assuming that they can pull that off, and I hope they don't, but assuming that they can, got to get to 28 no votes. So more people to contact their reps and let them know what's going on, the better. But they are oftentimes convinced that there is this health issue that's going on, that there is a reason to change the current caregiver system.
There's no health issues.
No.
There's no
Well,
danger.
it was fabricated hysteria. I mean, they have this
They do it every time.
economic study and this polling thing, and then just they rely on the assumption that people are going to immediately accept that non-tested cannabis is necessarily dangerous for some reason.
Well,
And then people slip right into it.
on that point, you can't help but overlook not only that position taken by the organization, its representatives, and its lawyer, and that issue, and also on the children and the concerns of that. Let's identify that same person who's being paid by that organization to make these comments at one point in time was ahead of Laura during the patient caregiver program. And if she was really that concerned about this concept, it would have come out
Why
then.
didn't she do something about
Caregivers
it
have
then?
been supplying patients since 2008,
Yeah.
and probably before, unequivocally
No
before.
reason surfaced
And
to,
you know
to
what?
do anything about it.
Andrew Brisboe said it himself. Nobody ever died from smoking moldy weed.
He did say that.
Bam.
But
I mean, what
but the
other harm
facade,
could there be?
well, there's a
Yeah.
facade that the testing, all this, but I would say that some of the ideas that it's so dangerous gives them a reason to want to control it. Gives them a reason to sell it, which we know is a lie. And that's what I'm saying. There's nothing.
We all know
right.
why this is happening.
Right. But let me say something else, because that's one of them. But the children thing really bothered me. It's so hypocritical. Obviously, it's like,
Well, of course, but that's an easy one, right? Because at the end of the day, if last time I checked, teenage marijuana use in the state of Michigan
Down.
over the last 12 years. So point to it. If it's such a fucking problem, tell me why during the entire lifespan of this program, teenage marijuana use has dropped. But you know what teenage use hasn't dropped, Steve? Drinking, pills, all of these things that can actually harm these children. But we're going to focus on the weed.
It's easy.
Even the vape pens.
Exactly.
You know, there's still a stigma for medical and just adult records. Okay, so here you go. So, Jamie, this is a point that resonated with me. It's kind of a legal argument, but for the caregiver world and making this point, and it arises from the Michigan Supreme Court case Hartwick and Tuttle, where they're analyzing a number of different things. They're discussing Section 4 and Section 8 and, you know, whether or not if your bubble or...
Oh, it interplays with Section 7, maybe?
A little bit, but there's a point in time here, and I'm going to read a little bit about it and then explain what I'm talking about. So in that decision, they say primary caregivers must establish the amounts of usable marijuana needed to treat their patients' debilitating medical conditions, and then how many marijuana plants the primary caregiver needs to grow in order to ensure uninterrupted availability for the caregiver's patients. Further, to the extent that the Court of Appeals, this is the Supreme Court talking, further to the extent that the Court of Appeals, the lower court, determined that a written certification was comparable to a pharmaceutical prescription, this determination was erroneous. A written certification is not similar to that of a pharmaceutical prescription. Marijuana is a Schedule I controlled substance. Therefore, a doctor is not legally able to prescribe marijuana to an individual for any reason. So what was important here for this, just two things. One is that, first of all, it reminds us that the Court of Appeals thought that, which is death to the MMMA, right? Because if the doctor...
It's always been that way, though. I mean, the Court of Appeals
right,
has
true. But this is just a terrible...
Yeah.
You know, the case law, you know, like this... We were talking that it wouldn't go, you know, I could have predicted this if anyone was intellectually honest. Anyways, but what they're doing here is they're identifying that, number one, it's not a prescription, it's a certification. Two, because of that, the doctor is taken out of the equation. The normalcy of the doctor goes untied. Acting on behalf of that patient in terms of their frequency of use, dosing, you know, whatever the relationship of the cannabinoids are, what's good, bad, whatever. And some doctors want to have that. They think they know, and they think there's something that they're targeting. When I think, you know, most people think that there's too many variables. There may be some patterns of things. Some things may work for some. And if the doctor figures out and wants to make those, great, more power to him. But I'm suggesting here that the law, as it was identified here, and this is important for this caregiver point, which is when they X out the doctor, and it only being a recommendation, not a script. They have detached the doctor from the patient's needs. Okay, now it then goes. So the point I'm making is that so who's left? Well, you got the caregiver, right? And this case goes on. Well, the MA states that it's medical primary caregivers carry out a statutory duty created task that is. Completely unrelated to how a doctor would treat a patient. Additionally, while this reference to the statute is found in the section addressing minor patients requiring the legal guardian or parent, it's instructive here in that this is the unique feature of what a caregiver does. And in this situation, the caregiver is supposed to, the minor patient, determine their acquisition, number one, frequency of use, and dosing. And method of ingestion. Yeah. So if you're going to put this task onto a parent of a sick kid, which is a lot to ask of a parent of a sick kid because, you know, it requires them to know. I mean, at the very least for the adults, the same relationship is expected of the caregiver. And I say this because nothing in the MMFLA and nothing in the MRTMA suggests this. Now, there may be places that are very patient-friendly, but I can think back to a time when it was not easy to have contact and learn about this. When I would do free consultations back in 2012, 2009, 10, 11, 12, where patients would get certified and they'd need to talk to a lawyer. What is that? And they'd come in and say, okay, they were happy they got their card. Where do I go? What do I do? And it created a lot of different problems. But the point I'm making is that it was from here that these patients would learn, the caregivers of the compassion clubs and I always and if not all of my cases, there was always a theme of the caregiver that we would have been it was defending that they I always kind of framed it like it was a research and development part of what's the best cannabis for the patient. And it justified, of course, whatever the volume amounts were, and it focused on what the intentions were of it trying to be used for medical purposes. I mean, a lot of times you had people that were, they had sampled different things, different trials and errors that the caregiver was working on and trying to see what worked from some during the day, some of the night, and trying to come to a concept of this next harvest or the production of this, whatever it's going to be, is going to be designed to produce that, And many of them would want to test first to determine if it was the right ranges of what they're looking for. Of course, testing for other kind of, oddities or things like that. And, not everyone did. Some people did, but a lot of them were interested in what the, the interplay of the cannabinoids and terpenes and whatnot. And those samples have been around for a while, and certainly because as you've heard it before, we're looking for this like a 1-to-1 ratio, 2-to-1, 5-to-1, higher CBD, lower THC. Some of those strains have become more valuable, especially when dealing with children. Like you want to have less. I don't know, maybe not. There's got to be some. Maybe
Just
depends, right? But you're going to work it out. You're going to research and development it. And my point I'm making is, this whole thing this whole thing that we're talking about, the MMMA created two actors engaged in the marijuana. You have the caregiver and you have the patient, right? And part of it was to grow it, and part of it was to provide it, but also part of it was this other thing, which is the one-on-one interplay with the patient and finding the patient's proper dosing and teaching them and educating them and caring about them and not providing it if they didn't have enough money, or growing enough cannabis so they didn't have to worry about expenses, that they need a lot of oil, that to go into an oil regimen. 3 grams a day works for me. So I need
stuff that can't be duplicated in the commercial system.
What's that?
That stuff, that stuff that cannot be duplicated via the commercial system.
Which is not being duplicated. I'm talking about one-on-one, the caregiver for the patient. Nothing in the MMFLA is driven towards that outcome in any way. Or, they all want their patients to be happy. There might be some place. I'm not knocking it, but I'm saying the uniqueness of that caregiver for that patient and the interaction, the interplay is, it may have nothing to do with growing plants. Like, for example, a caregiver could go into a dispensary and buy for their patients and bring it home and search it that way as well. But the caregivers still are playing the role there and adding that extra layer that the doctors can't do by law. See what I'm saying? Yeah. And the doctor's not going to oversee them. So for that reason, like you could say that, okay, we replace the caregivers with huge grows for medical. We got stores they can go into. They've got their safe access. Yeah. Do they? Because safe access should include educated safe access, especially if you're talking about sick people, and financially affordable. Because I don't know that the types of treatments we're talking about that, large grams of oil that are going to be used, throughout the day for various points of the day or to sleep, those are not going to be affordable at the moment. Now, because the retail market is for the masses. Yeah. Both medical and, and it's not identified in one.
Well, plus the retail market in Michigan is quickly becoming recreational.
It's getting eaten away now. So I'm saying this is an argument for why we need care.
Which is not bad, because the MMFLA is not the greatest system ever. It's a system that passed through the legislature.
Oh, I agree. I just think that at that point, there's less and less focus on the medical side of marijuana. And some of these businesses that won't be the case, but the vast majority of them that I've been in, at this point in time, even the medical ones certainly have a recreational feel to them.
It's going to be good business to be able to point to the ability and willingness to want to help those who come in with that kind of a need or focus of
I mean, listen,
treating a condition or for health reasons.
it's interesting because what we're talking about is this. Look, you got you have a shrinking patient population, right? Because they have access at retail stores now, right? They can get it, which may make sense, but maybe they've been a patient long enough where they've kind of figured it out themselves, but it doesn't. But the idea that the patient population wouldn't continue to grow, right? I mean,
well, I'm sure it'll continue to grow.
It's shrinking right now.
Well, it's just not the carded patients. I mean, I think plenty of people are still using marijuana for one thing or another.
Those who benefit from caregivers or benefit from taking care of themselves and want to be part of the program will just continue to do that as need, whether or not that pool shrinks because of all the other options, then so be it. There's still no reason to screw around with it.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you something. It's because it's an interesting question. Like, I think, clearly, if the law remains the same, there's always going to be patients who are under the age of 18 or between 17 and 18 and 21 who are, who may be, like a parent in that situation, this generation of a parent in this situation, it may not really know what to do. And I don't know if they're going to get that information from a doctor or from a medical dispenser. So that is a need that you cannot replace.
No, it's a huge problem.
And ideally, you've got a caregiver that's helping with that and knows and is educated. And those are the ones that usually take on that kind of scenario. But
and they're few and far between. I mean, I can tell you just from my experience that, there lots of caregivers are willing to help when you have a sick child.
Sure.
But the ones that actually have experience doing it are few and far between, and it's tough. So to just completely wipe out the only people that are really willing to do it, because you start talking to a lot of these facilities, and some of them are comfortable with it, some of them aren't.
Well, I'm just
those really good, knowledgeable
you guys,
caregivers.
When we're talking about the education piece, and of course, now that caregivers don't have that one-on-one interaction, inserting the Midwest Canna concierge, that's what we specialize in, whether it is something that is a pharmaceutical related or just somebody who's interested in maximizing their cannabis intake and what is going to work for them. We will focus on terpenes, cannabinoids, and the endocannabinoid system and all of that. So, although it isn't the traditional system that we have been used to since 2008, where the caregiver was very active with their patient, there is starting, I guess, to be a different type of interaction that's necessary now.
Well, those caregivers that are really good at this and help to provide consistently, a product that's otherwise hard or expensive or not as consistent to get for them, oftentimes have more than one patient that they're dealing with because they're able to do this. And under this proposal, these amendments were to be adopted, that caregiver would have to choose between whose quality of life or life sustaining consistent supply would keep without risk.
Yeah.
Who they would keep online.
And I guess that, I think, is the biggest point, and I think the thing that needs to be hammered home to the legislature is that the whole idea of legalizing marijuana was to stop people from going to jail for weed. And what you're doing by even suggesting that you're going to change this law is taking an enormous step backwards, because we all know that, by and large, the people that are growing marijuana today for other people will continue to grow that marijuana even if they pass these laws. So really what you're saying is you want to put more people in jail.
And those willing to exceed limitations are going to, no matter what the laws are.
Right.
You already can't do that. So there's no reason to peel anything back.
That's right.
And but my final point on this was that the takeaway really destroys this kind of unique role that the caregivers were designed for. The point I'm making is that safe, affordable access to medicine is not something that should be regulated by rule. And these are the things that drive retail stores. It may not even be the fault, independent whose fault. The patient should not be deprived of safe access and affordable access. And safe access should include an option of a caregiver, especially for those patients who lack knowledge of how to treat with medical cannabis and need guidance and direction. This is the role of a caregiver. It's a role that has been the source of countless patients looking for empathy and compassion in a time of sickness. At that time of sickness, do you think is a retail place that you're going to walk into going to be the place you're going to get your relief? And I'm not saying that it doesn't exist, but is that where you really want somebody? Do you want to throw someone out there and like, hey, go to that retail store? You may have a good experience, you may not, but that experience may be.
It should be an option. Just like the caregiver system should be an option.
I mean, you can walk in there with your care. You can walk in there with your care.
Don't cut off any lane to any kind of access.
Right.
It's been working.
But I'm just saying, like there's as we've been told, the connection of the caregiver to the patient is unique and special, so much so that you retain an immunity from interacting with them and delivering cannabis and not for anything else. That tight. And your name is on the back of their card and vice versa. So you are really, really involved now because your cards are.
You got cards.
You got cards with the names. But the point is that that special condition has a wide range that really encompasses the assistance in the medical use of marijuana, right? And I mean, you could theoretically be taking away the ability of someone just to acquire it for someone else that's sick. If they knock those bills back to one patient, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Well, let's see. If someone could go in and they needed a lot of oil, they needed more than 2.5. The way it happened, that could never happen because they slowly. But they made it buy for 5 and treat 1. I don't know. I mean, and what the expense of that is ridiculous. That's the point I'm trying to make. If the market is shrinking like we're talking about, I mean. Just the fact that it's shrinking, it just tells you that, the idea of this is the worst part of it. The MMA came first. It was a voter initiative. There was 200, maybe 300,000 patients and almost 45, 50,000 caregivers at some point. And that community took a beating, in a lot of ways, but politically fought off, bad things that were coming in from every angle. Supreme Court made some great decisions. This Hartwick Tuttle case is a great opinion, and it's had a wild run. And the idea is that the caregivers and the patients is exactly what that law created. Right now, we are into this new world of the economy of medical cannabis because now there's money made. It's a business proposition for medical. Yep. We're allowing people to sell medicine for medical, which is never anything that was ever even contemplated for caregivers, and even if it was, compensation for costs, that would be a reason why people be investigated or you're making money. You're not allowed to, but none of this is part of the MMA. But the point I'm trying to make is it exists here, and it's a growing population year after year, and worked because the state was doing nothing for it. Now, what they do here is clearly with the MMFL is they create a new source, a source that is intended to keep out the caregivers. And they start building this thing and trying to supply the patients, because that's the drive, the patients, nah. And they can't do it, of course. They have to rely on the caregivers to save that program, right? Caregivers have to come in to save the medical program for a period of time. In November 2019, I think they finally shut it down. But for the period of time there, to avoid a state of emergency, caregivers were allowed to supply in a way different than they ever could before. Now overages were allowed. They encouraged, how much can I carry for my overages? Do I have 15 my limit?
Behavior that months prior, not months, but certainly years prior, they would have kicked your door in and pointed a freaking assault rifle at your head for.
And listen to me. So at that time, do you
Still
think,
will.
did the patient population change at that time? No, there's a huge demand, and the market couldn't even supply that demand, right? So now what has happened? Think about this. Now, the market has done the following. It has shrunk. Fewer patients than ever. The vast 300,000 is now dropping. Why is that? Do you think it has anything to do with this retail medical market that they're trying to drive the patients into? This retail medical that they're trying to drive them into and are losing them. Like that would be the case. Like if these medical places were so great, then there would be more patients going there. The population's dropping. I don't know. Maybe is there another explanation for that? I mean, even cynically, is there a reason? Maybe, oh, well, now I can, I don't need a card. Why would I waste my time? I didn't really have a condition before. Maybe would be the argument, but.
I don't even think it's that. I think that at its crux, like, most people didn't want to have to go get a card. Like, the last thing you wanted to do while marijuana was illegal is go to the state and say, hey, I want to be put on a list of people that have marijuana. And we're finally to a point, and this is a good thing, in the state where you don't have to necessarily worry about that you could get engaged by a police officer and have a specific amount of marijuana on you, and that it's not going to be a big deal.
When, now?
Yes.
And that was not the way it was.
That was not the way it
Right.
was, but everybody thought that if they got a card, it would be.
Right.
So now at this point, people are finally saying, well, I don't need a card. And I don't need, because especially if
Well, I've heard people say that where, oh, I don't need to get a card anymore because because of the recreational.
Right.
And you know what? If they have a provisioning center that's close to them that's recreational, people generally will do what's convenient for them.
Yep.
And it's not convenient necessarily to have to go renew your card.
I mean,
and it's not
Well-
convenient to try and find solely a medical facility where you get maybe a break on the price in regards to the taxing of it or something. It's not really that big of a
Lucky
deal.
for our patients in Michigan, we offer telemedicine for their visits, but also some of the things that we always tell people, because obviously we face that constantly. What's the reason for me to continue to get my card? It's kind of like a car insurance policy, because correct me if I'm wrong, when somebody gets pulled over, there's zero tolerance. So if you have a card, then there might be a little bit more of a protection in that regard.
Well, you have a
We
defense
also-
there in the MMMA, actually.
Yes. So then another reason is because they're not going to pay any more taxes than humanly necessary to the government. And, I think that the ones that we see coming through anyway, they feel better about having it if they have been given permission from a doctor.
And it's still illegal federally, so get your card to have your defenses in place if you need them for some reason.
Yeah, and not to mention the fact of 18 to 21. Adult use does not start until 21. So when you have an 18 to 21-year-old that wants to smoke some cannabis because he blew out his knee in high school playing football, he shouldn't be going to jail for that.
Right.
So we get him a card and he's protected.
Absolutely.
But I mean, when we look, like, this is Canna Jam, the aftermath, like the MMFLA aftermath is, they weren't prepared for it. The way the state dealt with it was not, and they needed the caregivers, and now they can do shit they couldn't do. Now they can't do it anymore. Now there's fewer patients than ever. They're basically driving patients into the rec market.
Yep.
Right? And they're going after caregivers. Like if you think about it, and it's a reality. Like there's been a huge reduction, and that may be the best argument. The best argument is that you are crushing the patient community, trying to drive them into your taxable retail market. What other explanation could there be for the constant dropping of the patient population? Right? It's too expensive for them. right? I mean, sales are down so much that the business of it, if it's 20% of your revenue, because it's 80-20, the percent, if that's the ratio, how much from a standpoint of just pure business, right?
Yeah.
Of your resources, and 80-20 is your market share.
They're both in the same building now, though.
Okay.
I mean, it's like,
But
that just adds to it. Like,
but if you're going to buy quality, whatever that's going to be for the patient or something that's going to be designed for them versus, I don't know. I mean,
it's not. It's the same shit. That's the thing.
It is.
Like, you walk
He's
in,
right.
you're standing in a room, and you got a display over here with recreational marijuana in it, and then you have a display over here with medical marijuana in it. And that is the insanity of these two programs, the MMFLA versus MRTMA.
And it's another reason to get a card, because when you go into a place that has both, you have more options.
Right.
Because you got your medical card. So
But seriously,
that's another good reason to get your card.
You're right, because if you don't have your card, you're
you
buying off of this display case over here.
You can't get the medical unless you have your card.
That's right.
But and a lot of places like Botanical Company will give a patient 10% off on a adult use purchase to compensate for the excise tax.
Is it true that there are different testing criteria for adult use versus medical?
Yes. Yes. Some of the levels of material that would be, and it's all random. You know, there's nothing saying that this makes it more, makes it less anything. You know, there's nothing that suggests that whatever they've come up with is anything other than
I mean, that part, unfortunately, I mean, the MMFLA versus MRTMA, like those two programs, they can't continue to coexist for any period of time. It just doesn't make any sense.
They should really just give the patients back to the caregivers.
That's it. Just, go back to basics,
that's
man.
the most logical.
That's right. They're destroying that program. They're expecting patients to come in and buy hyper-priced, unempathetic. Who knows what the program is? It may be them, may not be. It's impersonal. You're buying at a counter. Maybe some of them have stations where they consult.
Some of them are. I mean, it's and I think you can't paint them with that broad.
Okay, but if it was 50-50 of the marketplace, now it's 80-20 of the marketplace, and it's still in the same place. I'm just saying, I don't know that just an average business person who's analyzing the books and is making a decision of where our energies are going to be distributed.
No, they're going to go. They're going to do like what Jamie just said, and they're going to, give the patients a discount on adult use.
Okay, but I'm saying the whole out resources, is not. It wouldn't make sense to dump resources into something that's only turning over 20% return, just from a strict business. I'm not saying these places don't think like that, because they are patients, but the statistics tell us that there's a decline. I don't know what the answer is. And the phenomena is that since the MMFLA came into effect, it's been on decline. I mean, is that a coincidence? They're killing the patient market.
Well, I don't think it's since the MMFLA.
Yes, it is.
No, it's
that's my theory.
So the other thing that we're doing at Botanical Company is working with National ASA to get their patient focus certification. So the MMFLA is either going to go away by not being competitive, or it's going to be legislatively combined into one license along with just one commercial retail license. So it's just something to be able to point to demonstrate that we still are willing and able to take somebody down that road if that's what they're coming in to use the cannabis for. But it's the same products as what we're saying. We've been saying.
The great thing about combining those two laws, you don't have to touch the act. Leave the act to fuck alone.
Well, listen to me now. Right. Listen to me now. This argument that I've just pulled out of this, it's really hard sometimes to unravel and make sense of what's taking place, because it is built on the biggest lie ever, that cannabis is Schedule 1, and all kinds of shit happens after that. So whatever we're tired, if it's like, I could tell you that, I don't know. I mean, I know of some statistics of earnings in the medical that, which would seem to be extremely low, but when they renewed their medical license, they were in a tier 2, which dictates what your next year's fees, this year's fee is going to be for your license because it's based on your production that you reported. So
they're going down. Yeah.
So I'm saying he would think, the idea was like it was low. He was in the tier 2 of 3. It was the middle of the road, and it was, the rec was 4 or 5 times greater. You know what I mean? But what I'm saying is that the trend here of absorbing the medical into the rec and the reduction of the patient population, which Jim, the talking point here is that it is directly related to this because the increase in the program has been on that trajectory of an increase from day one. There's never been a year where it's stepped back. The only time that there was some confusion reading the data was when they made it 2 years. 2 year, right? And
yeah.
So, but here we are, patient population. That is a remarkable statistic, and I don't know any other. I mean, if the caregivers were part of the building of that, and the new licensees are the only game in town, and the biggest advocacies are pushing for them to be removed at the same time while they destroy the patient community in reduction. And we know the drive is going to be to absorb the MMFLA into the recreational, so it doesn't exist anymore. You're going to have a bunch of sick people that aren't going to have access, other than recreational. It's going to be overpriced, not directed for their specific treatment, which is.
But to be fair, that's the same access they'd have through the MMFLA right now. I mean, it is. The difference is the caregivers, and that's
what I'm saying. I mean, there's a pricing difference
between the MMFLA and MRTMA. Like it's pretty similar outside of the tax.
The tax is what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
okay?
but Jamie gave the solve for that.
That's him and his place.
And that's what his place is doing. But ultimately, what's going to end up happening is the state's going to just say, "Fine, we won't charge an excise tax for patients."
In 2 years from now, let's say the MMFLA is gone.
That's what's going to happen.
And there's no caregiving. And
that'll be a problem.
Okay, now you have a series of patients that are now, what happened 2 years ago when you started doing this, and the price of cannabis for the rec has dropped. So it's now a battle, right?
Mm-hmm.
And, or it's gone up because there's a shortage, I don't know. But
anything could happen, but
I'm just saying, yes, maybe over time the retail market becomes more accessible, tax, no tax, and it becomes, for purchasing, and it becomes more of a, a customer driven. But this is still not the same.
No, it's not.
And I don't know that, and I don't think that it makes sense if that's where it's going, that you're going to have a retail, recreational place that is going to, buy X amount of millions of dollars of inventory, whatever they're going to buy in inventory to load that store up, and it's going to be identified for what is probably going to be 15% of their market share, or the market of who they want to sell to. Like, that's not something they want. They want to get more into the. They want it to be 100%.
Yeah, it's a business.
They want it to be 100%. They don't want to give patient discounts, right? They don't want, So I'm saying the whole retail market is driven for running patients. It's kind of remarkable, right? Like the the criticism for medical was it's just a path to recreational. Mm-hmm. But now they're recreational is going to destroy medical. The idea of a patient is getting hacked here. You know what I mean,
yeah.
Jamie? That's the trajectory of this. It's interesting, and it may just be over tax dollars, but for a caregiver to be slaughtered in this destruction of the patient community, to just take the caregivers out, knowing that these patients will not have that, and they'll be subject. There's
no good reason to do it, and a lot of good reasons to not do it.
That's right.
Listen, I wrote this whole thing out here. It was like when I started out with my response that I mailed to the committee, and I've added to it. There's like 20 amendments. But I'm suggesting with this thing that I pulled out today, and the reality of where the market is when you think about it is a winner. Data, statistic-wise. Like, the whole fucking blame of the shrinking patient market is from the treatment of the patients, which falls on the caregivers, and the caregivers are being taken out, and that's what's needed. And when they eliminate the medical entirely, they beat down the patient community, and everything is recreational. Where are they going to go? You need caregivers for that reason alone.
Yes. Yeah.
And the idea that the market's going to drive the consumer is sickening, right? Like, oh yeah, it's 80, 20, 90, now it's 100, and there's no patients anymore. Nobody gives a shit. That's where it's going. And we're getting rid of caregivers. That's a good, JB, that's what we pulled out. It's unique. There's a lot of reasons not to. I'm putting that one at the top. I'm asking you to, you can give me credit when you go on your campaigns and whatnot, but if you can, I think that's a perspective you need to start shoving in the face of these guys. They're really leaving a patient community for the wolves.
Hey, so you remember, so this is this health concern, and as you pointed out, Shelby Edgerton saw direct caregiver to retail store activity for a period of time under emergency rules with no issues, and is one of the ones now crying about how there has to be this health issue addressed that exists, just fabricated out of nowhere. Yet, I think we discussed this on this show or a few months ago, but before the summer, there was a document one pager circulated amidst lawmakers that was generated by Steve Linder / MCMA. I'm actually impressed they didn't deny or confirm that it was them, but the lawmaker that it emanated from said that that's where it came from. And it had a three-parter. It started off with the Delta 8 stuff and the change in definition of marijuana. It had then a second part on caregivers and peeling back, plant counts and different things like that. And then there was a third part, which was making it more difficult for smaller businesses to flourish. And so, in my opinion, like the health thing gets less credibility when they show their ass a little bit on basically going after everything that's not them. And these things like caregiver system and micro businesses are just tangible things to start with. They're successful at this. They're not stopping here. They'll be after our adult 21 and over grows, probably starting to try to reduce those numbers, and then whatever. They're not going to stop here. Anything that's not them is up for grabs. So stop this now.
It's interesting. The premise of tax and regulate is an attempt to control the cannabis economy, which is impossible because it existed before without any controls. And the idea that you're going to control it, and the idea that you're going to do it by limiting the license to people is an absurdity. Right. It doesn't work. And whatever the logic is, it's against.
They're just focused. They're focused on the wrong things, and we've said it for years, right?
Yeah.
That the way to get rid of the black market is you have to get this quote unquote regulated market to get their price down to the same price as the black market, and that is what they should be focused on. Is if the caregivers are such a huge competition, well then up your freaking game. Like,
well, yeah, man, work on like reducing the restrictions that are making it difficult and costly.
Yep.
Work on creating a quality product, providing it with good service, fair price. That type of stuff. They'll all get their niche. But what they're doing, this whole process is indicative of why they make bad business decisions in this world. These guys are very accomplished in other worlds, in other contexts, but they don't have historical perspective. They don't understand the culture. They don't understand the nature of the product that they're selling. Well, so they don't make the best decisions.
That goes without saying, because when you really step back and look at it, these entities and the lobby effort is essentially trying to legislate and force and control people to have to buy their cannabis. And this is an absurdity. Like, cannabis has been around before that, and the lack of just self-awareness that decision is flawed, and that people don't see them just trying to control this, and force people to buy it at their stores. It's insane. It's insane. No matter what, and this is the biggest problem, no matter what the issue of legalization. It's not really legal unless you can grow your own plants. I don't, if the government can force you to. This is the whole thing. Like the push of the one plant legalization, Jamie. There's a lot of people that were going to die over whether we're allowed to grow plants or not, right? Because that's an important thing. Legalization, it may not be really mean tax and regulate, but certainly of the concepts of legalization that are critical for adult responsible cannabis activity is the ability to grow plants for yourself and not have to rely elsewhere. You know what I mean?
And to not have your door kicked in.
And the direction of this whole thing is a slippery slope. It just begins and stinks from the onset that they are trying to force you out of that, right? Like, it's not free if I got to buy it from you. And it sucks, and unless, and so they did that just any step in any direction trying to start removing cannabis, access cannabis to people, patients, what have you, if, I could see the caregiver world coming back around, when they transition out. Why wouldn't a bunch of people get their cards and interact with caregivers? I don't know.
Just leave them alone. If there's a problem, point to it. I have yet to hear the problem articulated in a way that I can understand it. And I consider myself, I might not be the smartest guy on the planet, but I think I would understand. And what I understand is that the only thing that makes sense is a financial motive behind this bullshit.
People that don't understand can be swayed by just assuming, well, of course it makes sense to test. Of course that would be safer for them. We should do that. Yeah. That's kind of shit is working a little bit for them. But of course, also, of course, Jim, you were right. That's what the motivation is.
I mean, I don't know that the state would ever get behind a commercial market that didn't have some testing. You know what I mean? I just think it's, I mean, maybe they do.
I mean,
no, for the caregiver system, I'm talking about.
Yeah, fine. That's what I'm saying.
The caregiver system does. I mean, they do test sometimes.
I know.
There's no reason to mandate it. As you know.
Mandated for whom?
The caregiver system. That's what they are trying to impart. One of the things.
Okay, I know when they changed up what they're forcing them to do, and right. Okay, but right. But if they wanted to participate if anyone wanted to participate in a commercial market, I think that.
Then give them a path to do that. And
okay.
have them
like the Oklahoma type scenario. Right. If your product, meets the standards to be in, there could be, other scenarios that surround all that. But that works. Then you keep like quality, diversity, all types of crafty type stuff on the market. It'd be great.
I might have to call it. I got to be in Flint at 8:30 tomorrow.
Yeah, early day.
Flint Town.
Yep.
You guys ever see
that?
Hey,
we're incidentally the Baytown, or Baytown. Bay Mills. The
Indian reservation or Native American reservation.
Yeah, natives from UP going to have one of their operations, cannabis up. They were the first ones. So real quickly, their story. They tried to contact the state for like a year to try to come up with some kind of parallel program because they decided that they wanted to look into being involved in cannabis. The state did not respond, and so they said, okay, we're just going forward with this. And they went through a few different things, and they ended up with a system that includes bringing in cannabis from the caregiver system. They're going to get that going in Flint Township, and from the beginning, those types of things. And Rick and I have spoken to some the Grand Traverse band up north, and just trying to offer. They have kind of a conservative one right now, but they're continuing to try to work.
I've heard of this, but I don't know that this is valid. We got to see it.
Valid.
Well, all right, but I was going to go on. But like the point being, anything that's not as restrictive or prohibitive than what we have, that could be an influence on it, is a good thing. They're talking about being able to go smoke in the casinos and all that kind of shit, and movie theaters, whatever.
Could you imagine?
God bless the Native Americans.
Could you imagine?
Oh yeah, that's the way to do it.
Absolutely.
They have the right idea.
Going through the slot machines, and instead of hitting a wall of cigarette smoke, you
instead
hit
of a cigar or cigarettes,
weed smoke.
Yeah.
Hitting a big fat
blunt
J.
section.
I'll sit there and play cards all day.
Me too, but they better keep bringing the sodas.
in the money.
Possibly ice water.
I better be winning.
I think we got to wrap it, don't we?
Yeah, let's wrap it. We got an early day.
Early day. Where's our fight? We got to bring.
Doing battle again.
We got the.
Shut it down, Dan.
Find it.
Well, good luck tomorrow with your battle. I hope it goes well. If you are on YouTube, please send me the link. I would love to watch.
All right, it'll be fun.
All right,
shut it down.
It's a wrap.
All right,
it's a wrap. Let's go.
See you next, Jamie.
Bye, guys.
Jamie, thanks. Amanda, thanks. Jim.
Next
Steve,
week.
Dan.
Same time, same
Dan.
place.
Absolutely.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Before you plead, call me, Attorney Michael Komorn.
An important and historical farm crop in American agriculture is returned after having been classified as a controlled substance and illegal. On December 20th, 2018, the President signed the Farm Bill, also known as the Agriculture Improvement Act of 2018, into law. The signing of the act was great news for the hemp industry, which amended the definition of marijuana in the Federal Controlled Substances Act. Hemp is now defined as the plant, Cannabis sativa L, and any part of the plant, growing or not, with less than 0.3% THC concentration on a dry basis. The plant itself is no longer a controlled substance. Hemp is one of the most versatile plants on earth. From clothing, fiber, paper, building materials, hempcrete, biofuels, CBD, and medical uses, it has been a part of America's industry for over 200 years. Even the United States Constitution was drafted on hemp paper. The time is now. If you're thinking of getting in the farming or processing of hemp, contact our global experts, legal, and consultation teams to make sure that you're on the right road when you venture into the new hemp industrial revolution. Michigan Hemp Industries has been a leader and advocate for the return of the hemp industry, so come be a part of the new revolution in agriculture in Michigan.